Greetings to our YouTube audience. Thank you for tuning in. And wow, it's so nice to have such a lovely mix of people here this morning. I had shared with our folks who are in the auditorium, it's a special kind of a day. And I think the video, if you're just listening in, you're going to miss, but I'm going to make some reference to the piece of art that's right to the left of me. And I think we have it on the video screen. So, the Caron Chapel service, which I have the privilege of being the principal presider for, follows a winding journey through a series of topics. I think at the moment we have 19 topics. And quite a long time ago, Keith Rogers and I consulted about the fall spiritual retreat, which is still at this moment continuing, and we decided that the theme for the retreat, taking inspiration from a lovely book called The Spirituality of Imperfection, would be imperfection. And as I looked at my chapel topics, I was like, oh, maybe I need to change the chapel topic for this Sunday, but my chapel topic by its calendar is humility. And I was like, no, I'm not changing it. So that's a synchronicity in my mind, and if you're a non-God person, I would encourage you to pay close attention to the weird concurrences that occur in human experience that are hard to chalk up to mere randomness. And one of them for me would be a small illustration is that humility and imperfection align. They're so closely connected. So I want to wander through several different things, and I'm going to trust it'll all come together. I want to tell you about an artist whose name is Meg Saligman. I'm guessing you won't know Meg Saligman, but I came to know of her when in 2015 I was serving here at Caron, and we got invited as an organization to participate in a really interesting spiritual project that Meg Saligman was the artist organizing. It happened in that year that Pope Francis, the new Roman Catholic Pope at that time, new in his papacy, was coming to Philadelphia. And these papal visits are a big deal in the Roman tradition and often influence larger constituencies. And that whole way in which the Roman Catholic Church exists in the world and how it influences theological and spiritual culture, I think is quite fascinating. And of course there are complex pieces of that story. Anyway, Pope Francis is coming to Philadelphia, and Meg Saligman decides that she wants to do an art project. And what she does is she goes to places where people are sick and hurting, and she's inspired by a painting that Pope Francis has expressed appreciation for. It's a painting of Mary, the mother of Jesus, untying knots. And this Mary undoer of knots is an interesting depiction of Mary. And so Saligman decides to get prayer strips and tie them together and make a grotto, a small enclosure. It was turned out to be huge. And we got, I think, 2,000 prayer strips right to Caron, and we had patients write prayers on these strips and sent them down to Philadelphia. They had maybe 600,000 of these prayer strips, like a staggering number of them, and did this whole installation of fabric prayers. And it was quite beautiful, and the Pope, it wasn't a scheduled thing, but the Pope decided that he wanted to visit it, blessed the installation, and I was like, wow, that's really neat. And I was excited about our small secular organization being able to participate in this interfaith project, because they asked Presbyterians that. I thought, I wonder what she would know if she knew there was a bunch of addicted, many atheist, non-spiritual people who are going to join in this project. And our patients were super happy to do it. So, yay! And I just recently was researching, and what I found is that in 2018, they weren't able to keep the grotto up, but in 2018, she repurposed some of the project in color instead of like it was done all in white. And there's a Meg Saligman installation of the prayer grotto that's now a permanent piece somewhere. If you want, you can learn about it. I tell you about that because her work struck me as beautiful, and it was one small piece of my inspiration in the workshop that I led with camp retreatants yesterday as part of the fall retreat. And this mishmash of things, mishmash, those of you who are with me, I'm making words. This mishmash of things is tremendously meaningful to me, and I know those of us who helped make pieces of it were, I watched a bunch of people when they came in the room and saw the collective artwork, but these curled prayer intentions, and I'm going to tell you more about them later, are the Meg Seligman sort of component. I wanted to have prayer strips, as it were, as part of a project. The other thing, moving forward and through the collection of things I wanted to talk about, was I've become enamored, and I've already spoken in previous chapel messages, about a Japanese art form called kintsugi, K-I-N-T-S-U-G-I, in which broken pottery is reassembled, and the epoxies that are used to reassemble the pottery are enhanced with precious metals, particularly gold, silver, platinum. And so the resulting reformed vessels are prized as being of greater value than the initial clay piece of work. And I've become a person who tries to make kintsugi pieces myself. I've had some success, it's been great. It was the inspiration for my workshops yesterday. And these 3 tiles that you see are shared kintsugi projects. So a dear friend of mine who's here somewhere, his name is Wolf Yaxel. He's a spiritual care director at another treatment center in North Carolina. Yay, dude, I'll miss you when you go home. Came yesterday and was a part, but Wolf and I got to spend Friday night smashing pottery. And it was very cathartic. It was like awesome. And then all of our retreatants who participated in this got to break pottery too. Like it was very destructive. But what helped with that was an engagement in what I think is a common human experience that sadly, I believe today, we're encouraged at a massive social level to shy away from, which is the admission of the feeling of brokenness, the feeling of imperfection, the feeling of I can't measure up, the feeling of I'm not good enough, the feeling of like, and we look at our neighbors with their, perfect Facebook streams, and we look at people on the television and then every once in a while we find out that these people who seem to have these plastic, pseudo-perfect lives are in fact struggling themselves. And it's a really, I'm thinking of an actress, I won't mention the name, but who, when I discovered how much mental health struggle they were having, I was like, wow, what a mistake I was making. Because I was judging a person's insides by the outsides. Terrible mistake, Jack. Like, wrong. And we also are living in a cancel culture, right? Where a public indiscretion or unwise choice or sticky wicket becomes what you're branded with. And my usual illustrations for this are like O.J. Simpson, there you go. Or even for me to talk about Catholicism, Catholic priest, there, we go right to the scandal rather than appreciating these great teachers like Martin Luther King Jr. and Mother Teresa, amazingly wonderful beings who have changed the world, are sadly, you can go Google and find out bad things about them. And if you want, you can go find out bad things about me. I'm pretty sure if I want to go find out bad things about you. So there's a pretense of imperfection being so wrong as to need to be covered up. Even the fact that I wear a white robe is probably some legacy of the vesting of clergy as if somehow they were supposed to be, pure and sanctimonious and sanctified, whatever. But I am deeply, passionately committed to my own vocation as a spiritual practitioner, to being willing to bear my fallibility. And one of the things that's helped me in the work with the Kintsugi project, and I heard Wolf say this last night in his really great address to us, was, I don't want to buy the notion of brokenness because it's universal. That would be saying that, we're all like mouth breathers or whatever. Like yes, we all struggle. Why are we pathologizing it? Why are we demonizing? Why are we shaming one another for what's written into the script? I'm pretty sure the God that I believe in has set this game up this way. And it depends on what your origin story is. The Adam and Eve story, then we know it's our fault, but I don't know. The divine put a serpent in there, like we were supposed to miss the trap. Like, I think it was pretty sneaky mean, right? Like, because God also made in me this rebellious, incorrigible little boy. And I'm off track, which is fine. I was on Meg Seligman. I went to Kintsugi. I'm talking about us being inherently fallible. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about was these are very different than the Meg Seligman strips because they're fashioned, and those who participated in the workshop know this, but the rest of you have no idea. They're fashioned as a thing that's called a Mobius strip. And a Mobius strip is a one-sided surface for the math nerds who are here. It's a topographical illustration. But what's cool about a Mobius strip is that if you take a piece of paper and make a loop with it, and then you flip the loop before you attach it, what happens is that what was a top and bottom, or an out and an in, gets confused, right? So there's a top that meets the bottom, and there's a bottom that meets the top. And what it means is there's no top or bottom. You can scoosh the thing around, and whatever looks like it's on the inside right here, if I scoosh it around, will come to be the outside. It's really kind of nifty little thing. And the mathematician is like, it's a one-sided surface. It is. M.C. Escher loved Mobius strips, and there's a lot of theory and stuff that's looking into them. But what we did as retreatants is we wrote a thing about ourselves that we saw as a brokenness on one side. And then we wrote a thing about ourselves that we saw as a gift that had come from the brokenness on the other. And my point in having us have a chance to do this is that I think this is that we're not really good at knowing what, in the end, good and bad are. I think the good and bad notion is a failed notion. Because some of the things I thought were great in my life, I've later come to think, no, I was terribly off course from my values and being drawn by the dopamine upregulation of some thrill seeking. And I hurt other people in the pursuit of that. And maybe, so I'm more compassionate, I'm more empathic, I'm not going to do some of those things, I pray, ever again. My recovery is broader because I have gone down those unwise, unskillful paths. Does that make them bad or good, right? Yes, is the answer. I'm not recommending them to anybody, but in some sense they were the necessary precursor for my improvement. And I pray that those who experienced them as harmful might similarly, in some weird way, say that the harm that they suffered from my, in this judgy thing is dangerous and unwise. One of my spiritual teachers was this lovely woman named Sophie Burnham. She's still alive, written tons of books, famous for her book on angels. Wrote a lovely novel in which the character of the book Revelation comes as a priest or Episcopal priest to realize that he's lost his bearings, that these notions of sin and right and wrong are topsy-turvy like that. So he experiences a love he's not supposed to experience, but it's a love of such incredible beauty that he can't call it wrong, my wish is that in speaking about humility now, before I shut up, finally, I could convey something that happened in my journey of Alcoholics Anonymous recovery, which is, and connect all these things together. So I had teachers who had these cute sayings about humility. I don't like cute sayings, which made me really have trouble with Father Bill, because he was the master of cutesy sayings. Two sickies don't make a wellie. You know, it's like, what? But there's a lot of truth in there, my dear friend. So the cutesy sayings around humility were, what's one of them is, humility is not thinking less of myself, it's thinking of myself less. That's a good one, as cutesy as it is. Another one is, humility and humiliation are not the same thing. And in fact, humility is a way to decrease your experiences of humiliation. And I was telling Wolf about a mentor of mine, an old guy named Keith, not the Keith I referenced earlier, but this big, towering juggernaut of a man who was a wise counselor to me in my early sobriety. And Keith used to say this thing, which was, do you want more serenity? Decrease your expectations. I don't like that truth, but I think it's deeply true. So as I reflected on all these different themes, what I wrote down the other day as a key piece of the message that I wanted to bring to chapel was that humility is a middle way, not a lower thing. And I think that's really a helpful key thing that I've never heard anybody really talk about, and I want to talk about it for a minute, because I think we live, it's the flip of the coin of the societal pressures I was talking about before, is that I think there's an incredible societal pressure towards achievement and looking goodness and material and commercial, standing and status, and I get sucked into it. I'm concerned if I don't have the right sneakers when I go to the young adult male program. I should call them kicks, and it's so not cool. And why am I so hung up with measuring up? I want to celebrate, by the way, in public, on video. Well, another really neat thing in the room today is our new CEO, John Driscoll, is standing in the back. Yay! And the coolest thing of all about it is he came in with a plaid shirt and sneakers, right? So, dude, way to go. Being real means that we will be real with one another in ways that some people will say, whoa, you're not wearing the right sneakers, you shouldn't even call them that anymore. And one of the things I said to a group yesterday, and I'm going to say it again, it wasn't part of my planned script, but is, if you decide to play the measure up game, it will be necessary for you to couch and hold behind things about you because you're playing the game. And then when you say, I really like you, I'm afraid to turn around and have you see what's in here, right? So I don't think you really like me, so it doesn't feel good when you say you really like me. What feels is bad. The only way for me to feel the connectedness of human interconnectedness and experience authentic affirmation and love, which is a little boy in me we all need to be loved, is for me to let you see the me that has the things that look like cracked veins, but through which the light shines through. And two things will happen. One is somebody will go, oh, you got a bad crack there. Forget that person. Yes, I used an F word, but I'm turn the other way, because you don't want to be in a relationship with a person who's going to look flaw at you. They're not offering you relationship. They're offering you judgment and condemnation. When you turn to somebody else and say, will you love me in this way that I am? And you say, yes, that's a relationship you want to continue. And this is the plane on which real love can be found. Not in the pretense game, and not also in the I am a worm and I'm the worst. This is how humility is a middle way. I'm not the worst and I'm not the best. AA captures this so well in another one of these cutesy sayings. just to aspire to be another bozo on the bus. I hated that the first time I heard that because I was in the rat race mentality. But I've come to love that expression. This is what I aspire to, is to be another bozo on the bus. I have the strivings of the last decades of my life are a testimony to the gradual acquisition of the awareness of the futility and lack of wisdom of a climbing trajectory. I wanted to become the guy in addiction spiritual care. I wanted, like, all that stuff. And you guys flatter me so much, which is great. But it's also a dangerous thing. Like, that's a dangerous path, because if I start getting caught up in that, I'm going to be inclined to let you only see the parts that conform to the desire of the image. And then I will be alone, because your affirmation of me will land in a shame place instead of in a true connectedness. So I want you to consider being the beautiful you are. Yeah, that's it. That's the punchline of the whole thing. I want you to hear the invitation to be the beautiful you.